Again, thank you so much for having us. We are really happy to be here again in our second home, Bilkent University, and having a chance to talk with you guys. And for today, we actually thought maybe we can create some subcategories for master's application and then life after master's and our journeys in here as an international students in abroad. So first, we thought maybe we can briefly talk about why we decided to apply our programs, why we choose our schools, and maybe we can briefly talk about this as our program names are also kind of outside of the box, kind of new. For instance, learning science is not a term that we all know because it's not really common in Turkey, based on my knowledge at least. And maybe I can start and then Zeynep or Liba, you can follow. For me, actually, I joined Bilkent Developmental Laboratory as a freshman student. And because I joined laboratory at that early time, I had a chance to understand that I'm really interested in developmental psychology. And I continued working in several projects during my undergrad years. And around third grade, I realized that I'm really interested in selective learning topic, which is kind of explains our social situation and how we learn information is kind of aligned together. So for instance, we obtain most of the information from outside, but we don't accept all the information. We don't trust everyone and we don't trust everyone's testimony about accepting a knowledge information. And I was really passionate about that. And then I also go to US for doing my internship about this, doing an internship in the same area, selective trust area and selective learning. And while doing that, I actually really realized I understand that I'm interested in learning. But what was missing for me is in Bilkent, we took many courses in cognitive psychology specifically, and we actually have a really good understanding of what is learning and the process of learning. We know memory, and I know you also studied all of those topics. But for me, I was also curious about other disciplines and how learning in general can influence us and how we can learn an information from different perspectives, actually, for instance, from an educational perspective as well. And then I realized that this program might be a good fit for me because learning science department, I might say, is a very interdisciplinary area, and it has many approach to understanding learning. And that's why I decided to choose this program in Germany. I mean, the reason for why I came here, Germany, was not because I wanted to come Germany, even though this is a really beautiful country. I was really fascinated with this department, and that's why I applied specifically for this program. And luckily, I got accepted, and now I'm here. Maybe Zeynep or Lübe, you may want to tell as well.
Yeah, I can go if you like, Lübe. Yeah. I really like Sıla''s reasons, so deep and so knowledgeable. For me, the application to KU Leuven was merely based on the course content. Not many psychology departments in European universities have a major focus on neuropsychology or neuroscience. And KU Leuven was one of those universities with a lot of focus on these topics. And I definitely knew since second grade in my bachelor's that I would be doing something related to neuroscience, something related to neuropsychology. And here at KU Leuven, I had the opportunity to work on my master's thesis with a focus on neurocognitive outcomes of certain drugs, which I enjoy very much. And of course, another reason was that KU Leuven is one of the finest universities in psychology. So those are my reasons for mainly applying here. And you, Lübe?
Yeah, actually my history also a bit similar to Zayn. Works in Bilkent University, you see that I'm all over the place. I worked in like cognitive, I worked in neuroscience laboratory, I worked in developmental laboratory. Then I did my internship in the clinical field. So I was very indecisive. But I think it's one of the reasons that Bilkent didn't help me to, we didn't have enough courses with the clinical psychology. I didn't know that field. So after I did my internship, I realized that I'm really into clinical psychology. But more specifically, it was more about neuropsychological disorders for me. For example, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. These are the ones that capture my attention. Then I looked for the master's program, like how can I combine the clinical field and the neuroscience or neuropsychology field together. Actually, it's a very new field. There isn't too much option that combines the both of them. So I didn't have so much options, but Padua University have like one of the best, I think, option for me. And I really wanted to apply it. I was very excited to be a part of it. Then I got admitted and I was really lucky too. That was my process.
Yeah, and at that point, I think it's important to talk about the application procedure a little bit, because I know that we all had a hard time while doing all that. So if you guys want to share your experience on the application procedure.
I think maybe I can start with the most common ones that you all need to prepare by applying for master's degrees. It doesn't have to be in Europe or in Turkey. Also, this is the same, usually the same for United States as well. So the first one I will say is having a nice CV, which is kind of a key for us. And luckily, as you're all working in laboratories right now, you already have plenty of stuff, I assume, that you can add your CV. And this is a really nice way to communicate that you not only attended courses during your university years, but you also had a chance to have more direct experience in research field, or maybe like you volunteered maybe, or you had work-related experiences. So this is a really nice way of communicating all of those skills that you obtained during those years, and communicate all of them with the admission committee. And the second one, maybe I can just briefly talk, maybe Zeynep can also help me on that, is because she really good at writing in general, is statement of purpose. I think this is a very nice way of saying that why you are applying to that program, why you're a good candidate, because during the admission process, you don't, especially for Europe, I can say, this is different for United States, because when you want to apply for a master's degree in United States, usually you have to, or you may want to talk with your professors beforehand, and they will have a chance to get to know you. But when you apply for most of the programs in Europe, you apply to a program, not to a professor. And that's why you don't have a chance to communicate with someone. So that's why having a nice statement of purpose is, I think, really important, because then you can say, those are the reasons for why I'm really good for this school, for this program. That's why I'm a good candidate. And you can think me as a nice candidate. And you can also like elaborate the things that you said on your CV already.
Yeah, I think motivation letter is probably the most important document that you will be handing into your application. And I mean, based on experience, I would say that the most important thing about a motivation letter is that you need to tell a story. You need to show these people how you are suitable for that program and how your experience so far has prepared you to be a good candidate. And you need to be candid. You need to be open about all of the experiences you've had. If you had to change schools, you need to explain why. If you worked in certain labs and then stopped working there, you need to explain why. So motivation letter is really a crucial part. And for us, for instance, when we were in our fourth year, I guess, Cedoca actually held a workshop to, tell us how to convey your, communicate your experience in a motivation letter, which was really helpful. But yeah, the most important thing is your motivation letter. And of course, there are some basic other documents, your transcript of records. I don't know, what else do we have, Lüve?
I think, you said reference letter, we put also transcripts. And like transcript is, for Padua University, it was really important because they have a little bit of a different system. They really want to see how many exams did you take about specific topics. Like I mean, it's specific to my university. I don't think it's applied for yours guys, but they asked me like what type of classes and exams did I take for the cognitive and what type of exams I clinical part. So they are really interested on the transcript too, which means that the courses you're taking in your bachelor is very important for them. It has to somehow suitable with your interest for the master program you're applying to. So it's not like a taking, I don't know. I mean, they have to see that your story, you're doing this for the academic life. So it has to tell, I think it's same for this purpose too. It's the way of showing your story, why you are there and how did you come to that point. It's also same with transcript too. They also interested in that too.
Yeah, about that exams that you took, there was something similar for my application to KU Leuven. Since my program is very much focused on statistics and theory and research, they actually asked me to fill in a form that showed how many mathematics courses and statistics courses I took in both high school and in my bachelor's. And they asked about the content of all those courses. So different universities, different programs may have different requirements based on their content. So you should keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. I actually, my program also had a similar requirement. We also fill out a table of knowledge form, and in there we had to write the courses that we take and how we what are the topics that we usually study during those courses. We actually, like I remember I go back and check every syllabus and then write a detailed description of the courses that I already taken, because that was a really important. And actually when I first start to my program, my master's program, one of our professors told us that because we are coming from different countries and different universities, it is really difficult to know what your GPA stands for. For instance, I might get a 4.0 GPA in Turkey, but they don't know what that means in Turkey. This might be really easy, this might be really difficult to obtain. So that's why they are trying to have more information about the content of the courses and what we learn in general. That's why they can decide. So that was more like an insider opinion. And I really like actually that idea, because especially those programs are more international, that it's, I think, really nice thing and an advantage of you that they ask such a document.
Yeah, and I think the gist is like the application process is like very time consuming and like a little bit of a hard process. You have to do like revise your things, CV, statement of purpose, or even transcript. You have to revise it for every university you're applying for. So it's not like you did it and like you just gonna apply to go 10 universities at the same time. It's not like that. So you have to spare some time and energy for it. I know it's a long process, hard process, but it's worth it. We just want to encourage you to.
Yeah, perhaps the only document that you don't need to revise is your English proficiency document, obviously. Some schools take TOEFL, IELTS, and if you attended a bachelor's in English, they sometimes accept it too, but not very commonly, I'd say. They usually don't accept your bachelor's in English if you didn't study in a native English-speaking country. But you could check, I mean, if you don't have to take TOEFL or IELTS, since they're very expensive now. I think another thing is the reference letter. Did you guys have to send in reference letters for your applications?
That's, I think, really interesting. For my school, they didn't ask any of the recommendation letters. I know specifically for the United States, they ask these letters a lot. And they also ask these reference letters for PhD positions in Germany too. I know that some of the schools does that. But for my program, they didn't ask any of those reference letters, which was a really surprise for me. For you?
For me, I think I sent 2 reference letters, and it was the least that I can send it. They were really into the reference letters. They put a really emphasis on the reference letter for the University of Padua. So that's really different from me, that you didn't apply or you didn't put any reference letters to LMU, and I put it. It's different.
Yeah, and for me,
and you, Zeynep, did you put it?
They said they didn't require reference letters, but it was optional. I could send it, and I did, and I think it helped. So I think when it's optional, it's a good idea to send it if you think you have a really good reference letter.
Yeah.
Yeah. If not, don't send it.
No.
Yeah.
If
it's good, send it. If not, it may even like decrease your chance to be in it.
Absolutely.
It's a really important thing.
Absolutely. If you don't trust your reference letter very much, don't send it. I've made that mistake, and
hear from the best.
I've suffered the consequences. So yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask?
And
sorry.
Yeah, of course.
What do you mean by, not trusting your reference letter? Like, how can it be possible?
I think it's not enough to like have I don't know how to say. Okay. Probably if you ask for a reference letter and the professor said she's or he's going to give it to you, it means that they do have something good to say about you. But sometimes it's not enough. It should be something specific to you. They should talk about you and your skills and how they spent the time. What did you do in the laboratory? It shouldn't be something, oh, she's very good with the grades, or like she's a nice person. She's, I don't know, good with the group work and everything. It's general things. Everyone writes that. It doesn't make you shine in the admission process. But it should be something really good that represents you and who you are and what did you do in your studies.
So you should probably take your reference letters from professors who actually know you. I mean, just taking one course from a professor and asking for a reference letter may not always be a good idea. Of course, I mean, if you don't have any option and you have to hand in a reference letter, you should. But if you have other options, you should always consider them first.
And also, I think, I don't know whether this is ethical to say or like reasonable to say, but I also think that if you have a feeling that your professor is not really supporting you or want to have a really nice relation with your supervisor, let's say, then probably you may consider another option, because I think you should trust your gut feeling about this. If you think that your professor has a potential to write something okay or like not the best, then I think like you shouldn't just send a reference letter just because it's a reference letter. It can be something bad, and if you just, even if like a bit you feel like this might be actually harmful, then I think you should think about it twice.
Yeah.
So personal relations also matter in these reference letters, I think.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you so much.
May I ask a question about motivation letters?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a few motivation letters that I have yet to have a chance to write them myself, but I always, not always, but most of the time see a phrase, I have yet to gain experience in this field and I would love to learn more. Like I don't have much experience, but I would love to learn more. That phrase always seems like a double-edged sword to me, because you're basically admitting that you don't have as much experience that you would desire. What do you think about that sentence? Should that be put in on the motivation letter?
If it were me, if I were actually sincere about writing such thing, I would write it. But of course, never ever say anything bad about yourself in your motivation letter. And I don't think saying that I don't have enough experience is a bad thing if you say it in a correct way. Because of course, I mean, we're undergrads, right? I mean, not everyone has the opportunity to gain experience in exactly what they wanted. But I think it's a good idea to admit that. And if you can, show that you actually tried to gain experience in that field, but haven't had the opportunity enough. But you would like to learn more. I don't think that's a bad thing to say. But the important thing is how you convey it in your words. What do you guys think? What do you think about
Definitely agree. I think that's
But
perfect.
I believe that
You go, Libe.
I definitely agree with Zeynep, but The only thing I would say that I think it's the sentences for the interviews because they're gonna ask you, what is your weakest point? Like, what do you think you are weak about? And I think this is where you should say that sentences. This is my weak point, but I do want to get better. And you have this opportunities, you have this classes that I can compensate for it. I think this is for the interview.
Yeah. In general, I agree with both of you. I mean, I would also probably, if I want to say something that I want to excel at, I want to have more experience or more skill set for that area. For instance, let's say my statistic knowledge wasn't great when I was doing my undergrad. And then in my motivation letter, I could write something like, I involved in several research projects and I helped with data analysis, but I would love to learn more about statistic knowledge. And I think this program really provides great opportunities that I can enhance those skills. That kind of things might just like make it a bit softer. It's not like, because actually like you have a nice start. So I think it's important that we shouldn't frame it in a way that we are having a lack of skills at this point, but we have an experience and then you want to enhance it, because I know that you already have a good start for everything.
And the other thing in application process is, like, as you said, it's interviews. It also depends on the universities and which you're applying to. For the University of Padua, I didn't have any interview, but the other universities I have applied, I think I had like a 6 or 7 interviews in general. And what did you do, girls?
For me, I also had an interview. And before my interview, my program sent me a detailed email about the context that they will ask during my interview, which was really helpful. They usually focused on my academic skills. So they asked me, so they asked more about statistical stuff or research methods related stuff. And it was more like understanding my knowledge, but it was a nice interview experience for me. You, Zainab?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Oh,
We cannot
I
hear
think I
you.
froze for a second. Am I back?
Yeah,
Okay.
You're back.
Yeah. For me at Kai Leuven, there was no interview, which I loved very much. But for other programs, I did go into some interviews. And I mean, it's a bit of a nervous experience because you see sometimes 8, 9 professors looking at you, asking you questions. And even if you know everything by heart, that anxiousness sometimes makes you a little, how do you say, not great in interviews. But still, I think I like Sla's, perspective. She said that it was a good interview experience. So I guess you could look at it that way, an experience for next applications to PhD programs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there are like 2 types of interviews. First one is they are asking about your knowledge about studies, what did you do, like general knowledge things about psychology or cognitive psychology, whatever you're applying for. And the second one is about your personality, or what are you looking for in your, with the professors and everything. I remember I'm taking one of my interviews with the girls. We were all together. They were like supporting me from the other room. It's a definitely very nervous thing. But sometimes this 2 type is together. They're asking all of the questions in the one interview. And for the other universities, they are making 2 steps. If you pass the one step, you get the second step with another interview they're asking about you and everything. So, but they generally give you an email that says that, like, these are the things we're gonna talk about in general, or like they give you some hints what are they gonna ask or anything like that, but not too much of it. I mean, they're not giving you questions or anything like that. It's just saying, oh, it's gonna be a chill and fun one, or saying, okay, we are having an interview. It's something like this, but you should be prepared for it too.
I think for this part, we mentioned about plenty of documents, plenty of things that you should consider, and it may seem like a lot of things, but actually what is important in here is all of those schools require different documents and different stuff, different interview styles. So I think what is important is that you check all of those programs and see their requirements, but there are a couple of things, as we told, that usually come, like CV, statement of purpose, reference letter. These are the things that usually that you have to prepare beforehand. And if you have any questions about this area, even though this is kind of the scariest part, please ask. We would love to answer if you know the answer.
I would like to ask, actually, what was the hardest question you get in the interview?
Technically, I shouldn't say the content of the interview.
Yeah.
But I can say that statistic part was a bit difficult for me because I didn't feel comfortable doing a statistical analysis or interpreting the results during that time. Right now, I feel way more confident, which is now when I go back and see that was quite normal because that was only 4 years. Now I had more time to work on research and it improved as a natural consequence. So, but that time, statistic part was a bit difficult for me.
Yeah, for me, they asked me about what did I overcome my bachelor's, and I couldn't decide which problem should I mention. Oh, sorry. Okay, am I back?
Yes, yes.
Okay, they asked me about what did I overcome during my studies in bachelor, and I couldn't decide like which problem should I mention, and what did I like? It was a really hard question because I wasn't expecting the question, and I think I remember I went with the problem that I have with my thesis, senior project, not the thesis in the weekend, but senior project, and the problem like the communication with the professor and everything. But if sometimes you're gonna have questions that you don't expect, you don't prepare yourself, and you still have to like be confident, and you have to think quick, and that was my problem. I couldn't think very quickly, but yeah, it was still good. It's okay. You have any questions?
If there's any question, I can also add one point. I know this is not directly about masters in abroad, especially thinking that we are doing our masters in Europe. But I just wanted to say a quick thing that maybe if you're in 3rd grade or thinking about going to United States or Canada or doing your PhD in there, they might ask you a different document called diversity statement. I just wanted to tell you this so that you will know that there is such document, and then maybe you can prepare beforehand. And in that diversity statement, even though I'm not an expert on this, you can search definitely. But what they ask is how you can contribute to society, that how you did contribute to the society that you lived in, and how can you continue doing that in that university. So they ask you to have more volunteering experience if you had a difficult time because of your ethnicity, religion, or gender, or even if you don't have those problems, but if you help people who experience those problems to have a better life, then you should write this on your diversity statement, and they really value that statement. This is a really new concept. It was a really new concept for me when I first checked this. And at that time, it was too late for me to do something meaningful. And that's why I wanted to tell you this before, so that you will know that there is a document if you want to go to US, for instance.
If you don't have any other questions, I think we can go with our headlines that we want to talk about. We think that we have some headlines that may be helpful for you for this process, and what did we go through with the studying abroad. If you have any other question, we can